I like fish. I like eating them, and I like looking at them. I have right now an octagonal tank. I have no idea. It's lots and lots of gallons of water. It's really tall, and it's octagonal, like an octagon, like a stop sign. And in it, over the years, I had filled it with cichlid fish. They're very colorful fish. They swim in circles around the octagonal tank. And our fish guy at this shop sold us all the fish. And he explained to us that over the years, the fish, they're territorial. One guy likes the bottom, some like the middle, other at the top, right? So they all swim in circles. And over the years, I've added to my fish collection. I just started off with 2. As I said, they're cichlids. They're semi-aggressive fish. So when you buy a little fish, a little cichlid, I had 2 of those. I wanted to buy a new one. I had to, of course, buy the same size because they're aggressive. You get a big one, it'll attack the little ones. So, but otherwise, no problem if they're the same size. Here's the pet store scam, though, of course. I started getting into these fish years ago. When little ones are like $8, $10 for a fish. The problem is, double it in size, and now it's like a $50 fish. And if it gets a little bit bigger, that's an $80 fish, that's a $90 fish. And so, over the years, my fish got bigger, and they got progressively more expensive. And I think maybe the first few fish had names. One was striped like a bumblebee, and so he was like, that's the bumblebee fish. I don't know what it was. But by the end, when we had to buy big ones, that's the $90 fish, and that was the $70 fish. So, all things being capitalistic in America. One day, we go, my boys were little at the time, just had the 2 boys, whatever they were, 8 and 10, 9 and 11. We go to our fish guy. He knows all about our tank. We're looking all around his amazing store. He's got salt water, he's got fresh water, and we're looking around this amazing store, looking at all these things, but we keep going back to this little Thai devil crab, Thai, Thai devil crab. A little guy, like 2 thumbs. He was 2 thumbs, and he had the size of 2 thumbs. He had 2 big pincher claws, and then these little spider pointy feet. And little and bright red. And he seemed full of energy. He was by himself, and he was rushing around. He's checking things out in his little tank. And we looked all around the store, but we kept going back to this guy. He reminded me, if you ever keep chickens or if you've been around chickens, roosters. They're full of character. They're walking around and they're busy and they got to make moves and they're checking things out. That's what this crab. Hilarious, full of antics, and he stole our hearts. So I tell the fish guy, hey, I like this Thai devil crab. Will it go with my fish? Because he knows all about it. And he says, not only will this Thai devil crab go with your fish, he's going to drop to the bottom and he'll stay at the bottom and he'll run around and he'll clean up all the mess. He goes, you'll be cleaning your tank less thanks to the Thai devil crab. Sold. He's a wacky character and he cleans up the tank. So great. We took him home, he gave us a little plastic shoebox thing with water in it. We took the crab home. Took him home, it was $5, $7, whatever it was. Took him home to the beautiful octagonal fish tank. And the fish are in their layers and the light's on and it's very beautiful. So we gather around, my wife and myself and the 2 little boys, and we're standing at the tall fish tank. It sits on this beautiful oak pedestal. And here we go, we're all ready, and we're all happy, and we're all looking as a family. My wife's across from me, and I poured the Thai devil crab into the tank, and he bloop, and he hit the water, and he started like drifting down, and his feet were pointing down, and he seemed to be definitely looking all around, but he was going down, and he was going down, and then he like flapped, and it was kind of fun and pretty. And my kids giggled, and he flapped up a bit, and he flapped, and he got back to the top of the water. Like, look at him. He's not going down. And it was fun, and he was swimming there. He tried to climb up the he tried to climb up the filter thing, and so we had to get the net and get him back down there. It was a very tall tank. Once he got down, he'd never get out. We just got to get him down there, I figured. So pushed him back to the middle of the tank, and again he serenely started floating down, and he was going down, and right about the halfway mark, our Plecostomus, which was kind of big, not big like this, but I mean compared to this little two thumb guy, he was he was two thumbs himself, maybe, our Plecostomus swimming by. That was the size of his head, right? And so the Plecostomus comes swimming past him, the crab, as he's drifting down, and the crab reaches over, and he's serenely drifting. The crab just reaches over and with his snippers snips off my Plecostomus's head. His head is now a thread on his body, which is flipping around his head. His body just started swimming everywhere. There's little chunks of meat going everywhere. And immediately the fish got upset. Something happened. And they all started swimming, instead of serene circles, they were swimming every which way. They started swimming every which way, and the Thai crevel crab had flopped himself back up towards the top again. And as the fish were swimming this way, they're swimming every which way, the Thai devil crab flapped to the top, and as he was flapping, he stuck one of his pointy feet out and went, and it stuck through the body of my fish. And he pulled it out of one of the fish, and the fish started just swimming every which way until it went to the bottom. Another fish, by the way, this all I'm describing, it seemed to me in slow motion, and it all happened very quickly. Another fish came swimming by, and the devil crab took his pointy leg and stuck it up through his head, and it snupped out of his head, and he pulled it back out, and this time the fish didn't even wiggle. It just killed him, and he drifted down. His head was mouth pointing up to the top, and he went to the bottom of the tank. The Thai devil crab then flew like a bird, and he flew at all the fish, and he attacked them all as they swam around in the middle, and he stayed in the middle, and they were going crazy. And there were 8, I think, fish, hundreds of dollars worth of fish. And the Thai devil crab had cut one of the tails off of the back, the whole back of the tail body and that, of course, the fish died, and he stabbed and killed all the fish, and every single one of them, all the fish were dead. And the Thai devil crab then drifted to the bottom of the tank, and he immediately started behaving like he was at the store. He's running around, he's pushing dead fish bodies around, and he's looking under things, and he got all busy. And some of the fish were still swimming, like their nervous system's broken, in the air above him, and some of them were still just making their way down, drifting dead. And I looked over at my wife, and her face had turned white. And we had these fish for years. And I looked over at my 2 boys, and this all happened so quickly. I looked over at the 2 little boys. I looked at them. The devil crab had just touched down at the sand. I look at them, and they both went, "Yeah, that was awesome. Let's get more fish. Hurry up." The story should end there, but it doesn't. Very quickly. The Thai devil crab had killed all my fish. I never bought another fish again, by the way. I'll just throw that out there now. Get it over with. Never had fish again. The tank had to be cleaned up. I thought I was going to get more fish. The tank had to be cleaned up, so I had to get the crab out of there. So took all around, and I had this thing, and I got him out. I hoped I would kill him. I hoped I would kill him with the net against it, but got him out of there. And we had a little rectangular sick tank for sick fish. So we threw him in there. There's nothing in it. It was plain. It was purgatory, I hope, for this guy. And we closed the lid on him, and we forgot about him. And I had this vacuum thing, and I had to vacuum up all my fish into throw them in the toilet, throw them away. All my beautiful fish. But this crab, he escaped from the sick tank. And he came out of the fish tank. He would get out of the fish tank, and he would run around the top. We had a part, like a screen top, and he'd run around up there. And the first night I'm cleaning my tank, and I go back, and my boy's like, "Hey, he got out. Like, oh, so I turn around, and I didn't even use the net part. I had the stick in, and I'm trying to smack him back to push him back in the hole, where the filter, that's where he got out. And I kept trying to hit him and make him go back, and he wouldn't go back. Instead, he fought, and he fought back, and I was like, oh, so I don't know what I did. I think I got a book, and I shoved him into the tank, and I put the phone book and some other things on top of this tank. Within 24 hours, he'd got out again, because they had to leave a little space for the filter. And he learned to climb into the filter and out of the filter, and he would get out. He kept getting out. For the next month, for the next 30 days in the sick tank, the crab would get out, and he would snap and pick at everybody, and he would be violent, and you'd put pencils in his hand, and he'd bite the pencil, and you'd drop him and the pencil in the sick tank, and anything I could think of, I didn't care, just to get him back in there. He'd get loose, the kids would be screaming, and it was on this little tiny tabletop, the sick tank, and he'd run around the tabletop, and I got a call once at work. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my wife, and the kids were home. The crab wouldn't go back in the tank. I had 3 adults and a child called me at work because the crab is terrorizing them. Anyway, the end of the crab comes. He's terrorized us for a month. One night I get up 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. I walk across the living room. I step on something weird. I flip on the light. I look down, and it's the devil crab's pincher arm. And it was the very arm that killed my Plecostomus. There it was on the rug. And I picked it up, and I looked all around. I couldn't find him. I turned all the lights on the house because he's horror. He'd bitten our feet over time. He'd come off the table, by the way, and he'd run around the floor. We caught him everywhere. Couldn't find him. But I did find the cat, who had one of his nostrils snipped open. So I figured the devil crab had pinched the cat. The cat pulled his head away, tore his arm off, and ran away. That was the end of the Thai devil crab. And that was the end of my fish collection. But let's cut to about maybe a year later. We had this little piano. We moved the piano away from the wall. And my boys were helping me push it. And there, like a sentry, was the crab. We all jumped back as a family. A year later, there he was. But of course he was dead, and he had collapsed into his shell and dried up, and there he was, left in a position of like anger, like he went out just fuming about life, and he gave us one big scare before the end. So much for the Thai devil crab.